Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Gachiakuta Season 1, Episode 2. Another great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we had that little opening at the beginning where Rudo is remembering, the day, who knows how often he saw it, because I'm sure everyone saw it on a pretty regular enough basis, but the whole people being sent down into the pit. And obviously it's like, oh, why would anyone do that? People know, what happens to you once you get caught. Why would anyone do anything criminal? And Rudo's got this perspective of, right, everyone knows and comments about filth and criminals, but no one ever bothered to wonder what happens to people when they're thrown down in a pit, because they don't care, because it's more of a thing of, well, that was them, not me, it doesn't affect my life. Now, whether that's because people also share the same belief as that kid from last episode, that the whole element of, as long as they don't do bad stuff, they can kind of rehabilitate themselves and return to the good side of society, or whether it's just purely a thing of, it's not my problem, so why would I care? I'm trying to keep it low key and just live my life, no matter how trashy this existence is. As a trifolk person, it's my life and I'm just going to live it that way. So I think we don't fully know where the lines kind of draw in that regard. It could be an amalgamation of all of that. Either way, we're picking up where Rudo's circumstances left him, when he's literally being chased by literal trash monsters, and there's multiples chasing after him. He doesn't really know what to do. He's confused about this world. The air is poisonous to him because he's like, yo, I can't be standing here breathing this crap in all the time, while also dealing with monsters trying to kill him. And at one point, he's almost just kind of like, do I just sit down and die? But then for him, it's like, nah, screw that, I can't. The fact of the matter is, I need to get back at not only everyone that threw me down here, called me a murderer, treated me like crap, made their own minds up about who they believe me to be, and the bastard that got away with killing Recto. It's like, nah, that's not how this is going to go. And then in that moment, his hands, specifically his gloves, but like I said, it probably has to derive from his hands. I'm like, his hands are / arms are in very specific conditions that I'm like, well, there's got to be some superpowers associated with that. And lo and behold, they are. And in that moment, he starts picking up items and he starts fighting back. He picks up a regular metal pipe and is able to start doing some serious damage. Not really, but he's knocking these trash beasts around a bit. But they still outmatch him. So at another point, he picks up a sign on a pole and he tosses it like a shuriken, and he does literally cut a beast to the point it does explode afterwards. And then another point, no, he cuts off its arm. What I'm thinking of, there's a sheet of metal or something he picks up later, and he dashes forward and cuts one of the beasts like he's cutting it with a sword. So he ends up killing, I think, at least one or two of them, but the last one's still gunning for him because he's I think it's probably an amalgamation of, he's suffered some probably internal damage from being tossed around and hit multiple times throughout this fight, but also the air is probably just legitimately taking its toll on him too. We also find out these powers don't come for free. They take a toll on the body, so it's literally everything hitting him at once. And then we get introduced to Engine, who basically steps up to help him. In fact, gives him a breathing mask. And he's just like, hey, you gotta be quiet. He's like, what? Give me answers. Like, hey, you need to shut up, kid. It's like, give me answers. He's like, you idiot. I told you to shut up. The fact of the matter is, those trash beasts are going to be attracted to all this noise. See, the fact of the matter is, they're annoying to deal with. I was hoping just to kind of skate on by, but here you are. I'm literally telling you to shut up, but you refuse to shut up, and you keep running your mouth. And so he ends up having to take care of a whole bunch of trash beasts that show up, all armed with an umbrella that he's basically using like a spear, because the end of it is pointed, has an actual pointed blade to it, but pretty swift and sick motions with it. He's drawing this energy around it just like Rudo did. Especially that final strike. Well, I mean, for one, him kind of almost going very Mary Poppins, where he's just floating down with from the wind and it's gliding with the umbrella. And then the final one, what was it? Breaker, was it Octo Slash? It was it was something like, it's like an 8 technique or something, but basically was coming from above, slammed down into it. And I love just like you can literally, the moment it makes impact, it explodes the beast, but like you can see this like 8 markings in the ground from it. I was like, oh, that was just so beautifully animated and done. I was like, that's sick. I mean, he's also hiding behind like a mask, so we don't get to see his face, but he eventually takes the mask off and introduces himself, but then immediately goes, oh my god, that's Rancid. I shouldn't have taken the mask off. That's your fault. It's like, how is it his fault? He never told you to take off the mask. You're the one that wanted to try and be cool in that moment. But Rudo ends up passing out, and he has this memory of, kids, pushing him around because he's under the belief, because those lines we saw in the opening credits of the first episode, it seems like that's stuff that Retu had told Rudo about, like, right, souls inhabiting things that you take care of. Rudo internalized that as, well, these things are alive. If they can get a soul, that must mean that they're alive. And, it's like, it's kind of a legend, and Recto's like, well, it's more likely meant to just be a metaphor for basically how you should basically take care of things in life, that it isn't legitimate. But he's like, yeah, like, the fact is there must be some soul in this towel because I rub it on your face and is able to help you stay clean. So, and we see why that stayed with Rudo, why he cares so much about trash. I mean, especially considering, like, the nature of, like, the tribes folk and the circumstances under which they live. It makes sense why you'd be more willing to kind of keep stuff that the other folks will be so quick to throw away, but also believing like there is a soul, that there's life to every object, But yeah, he wakes up to Engine dragging him away, and Engine kind of breaks some things down to him, because I think he brought this argument up to him earlier where he's like, yo, we're not underground, we're above ground. And then, because like, Rudo's like, oh, I'm trying to get back to where I came from. He's like, the place you came from is the spear, but the fact of the matter is there's no real way to kind of get back there. I mean, you can, but I mean, we haven't found a way yet, because for one, it's on the move, and he also says like there's other reasons as well. So immediately I'm like, oh, so this is a bit of a Final Fantasy 13 situation. What I mean by that is, I'm sure there's other things, but like Final Fantasy 13 is the one that immediately comes to. In that world, there's 2 places. There's locations. There's Cocoon, which is like a floating, it's not even city, it's a floating world. And then down below on the surface is called Pulse. It's basically, think like there's almost like a giant, like, the easiest parallel would be, it's not an exact thing, but like imagine a more small, like condensed, smaller version of the moon, but it's actually here on Earth, and it's just sitting there, and most of humanity lives on it. And then the down below on Earth's surface, there's nothing but like monsters mainly running rampant and old remnants of old societies. It seems like that's how this place operates, especially considering it's called like the Spear and stuff like that. But knowing like, oh, like, I wonder how to, I mean, I'm sure we're going to dive into this as the lore progresses, but how we went from the spear to the, because it seems like very much like in the Final Fantasy 13 sense, it's like, well, Pulse, or in this case, the ground was where people lived first, and then like the spear, like, I don't know if it's like ancient society like split off and try to separate, get away from this world, and they created the spear, or what, like how that migration process happened. Maybe it's like the elite, which is kind of interesting when you think about it, because it's like there's such a elite and like those who have and those who have not type of social society in the spear. So what does that say about the ground, that like maybe the elites went up, and then eventually over generations the elites separated themselves between those, like I said, the haves and the have-nots. So it's interesting. So it's like, if you have the have and the have-nots in the spear, what does that mean for the people on the ground? I guess you could be like the haves, the have-nots, and the forgotten. Once again, because no one worries about the pit. I mean, it was so long ago. I mean, even the tribesfolk don't fully know what they did to be separated from the rest of society. So if they don't remember that far back, God knows they'd remember like, oh, there was a society. Like, they probably, like, how much of that is known and how much of that knowledge is held and how much of that is, like, kept from the general public, Especially the tribe folk. Probably none existing know about it. It might also be, like, might have something to do with Recto's death, that he, once again, that book, he must have discovered something, that a dirty secret about the world that they don't want out there. Like it could be like a religious entity oversees the spear, and it's like, yo, we don't want people knowing that there's another world out there, that there is something in the pit, because it's meant to be forgotten. It's meant to be just like the trash heap. But Recto is kind of, he said, screw whatever you're thinking, Engine. I don't care what it is. I'm going to find my way back to this spear. I'm going to get revenge. I'm going to understand all this. I want to pay back everyone, the people who basically turned their backs on me, threw me down here, as well as the guy who killed Recto. I'm going to get my revenge. And he's like, all right, fine. You want to know more about stuff? Left him chained up and then left him in front of a gas station or something. Some people came out and were like, oh my God, are you from the spear? And they're kind of like, oh my God, they're excited. They're taking off their mask. I was like, what's going on? I'm like, is there going to be a twist here? And yes, it's a twist, because initially it's like, oh my God, let's help you out. It's like, oh, did someone change you up? Okay, good. Now let's make sure we change you up and made you so secure that you can't get away, because they're planning on selling his body. So I guess we found out what probably has happened to a lot, maybe not all, but quite a few people from the spear who've fallen. God knows how many just actually died from the impact. Maybe Rudo's just made from tougher stuff and survived just because he's driven. It seems it's already kind of tough as nails to begin with, but makes you wonder how many people just straight up died from the fall and how many got grabbed up and sold off for pieces, even their clothes and stuff. But the guy talks about it right, this society existed already, and basically the spear would dump their trash down here and they pile it on over and over again until the place has become what it has. It's like, you're the reason why there's trash beasts. Basically, the air became poisonous, and it's all because of you. They have no idea what's going up there on the spear, that basically there's two divides of society, and they don't care. They've never cared to know, because it's like, you're all spirites to us. So, you will all basically get the noose all the same, So, it's interesting how you're criticized for being a tribefolk and looked down upon in that world, and you come down to the ground where, once again, you're treated just like any other spirit, tribesfolk or not, you're all the same in their eyes. So it is fascinating. And they're shoveling all this trashy food. They're like, oh yeah, you shouldn't let this food go to waste. It's actually food, ha ha ha. I'm sure you can't stand it and stuff like that. But then Rudo is chomping down on it after you bit that guy's fingers, literally ripped the skin, literally, because it's nothing but bone there. It's like, ugh. He picked them clean, got all the flesh and stuff off of it. But for Rudo, it's like, I'll gobble this up. I'm used to being seen as lesser than, but he's like, here you are labeling and thinking you know who I am. You're no better than those people who this or tribes folks spirit. I'm tired of everyone's labeling me, acting like they know who I am, and it's just you want to know why, I'll show you. And he unleashes his power, and nearby Engine's watching. He's like, okay, good, I'm glad I was right about this kid. Threw him to the wolves just to see if he was true, because he got a glimpse of it when Rudo was doing it before, but he had to be 100% sure. So Rudo, it seems like his power as a giver is to give life to a chain initially, but they're like, hey, just knock the chain out of his hand, it's fine. As long as a giver doesn't have their weapon, it's fine. But the problem is, turns out Rudo isn't bound to just one object. He's your persona main protagonist, where it's hey, or in the case of metaphor, all your protagonists having access to his weapon of choice is any trashy object. I think it's probably, as long as it's something that's discarded because of his affinity to all trash, he can give life to it. Whereas Engine's is Umbrella. But it seems like in Rudo's case, he can grab up any object, which is going to be nice versatility-wise when you're in literally a world of trash. But I'm wondering, I guess the argument could be, you could say that his gloves, because it does seem like it channels through his gloves first and foremost. So his gloves are probably the thing, that's probably what the real rub of it is, because those gloves are so important to him, and he has taken care of them. There's a lot of history, and obviously Recto gave those to him, so it's very important to him. So the gloves themselves are what he's channeling his powers through, and then they act as a medium for every other piece of trash or object that he picks up. So I'm that's probably more likely how that works. So What I thought was interesting though is I also super surprised he didn't kill any of those guys. That one guy he knocked out with a tire, but like not. I mean, he probably was going to go and kill the final guy, but luckily Engine showed up and stopped him, and it's just like, oh, when all the stuff fell out of the air, just knocked the final guy out. So I'm like, oh, I expected you to go on a killing spree in that moment, but nah, they're still all alive. So maintain at least some semblance of yourself to not be a murderer. But I guess it also makes sense on some subconscious level, considering his dad was brandished a murderer and he had to live that countlessly. So the need to not be his father is probably so deeply rooted into his subconscious that he subconsciously didn't kill anybody. So I thought that was fascinating. What I thought was interesting too is the last object he touched like ended up turning to dust. It ended up being what happened when Engine used his power against those trash beasts. He prevented them from regenerating, and they literally turned to dust / ash. So I guess because the like all objects in his hands will eventually do that. Like once he's fully used, I guess like you could almost look at it like every object has like HP or MP, and once it hits 0, the object loses its soul and dies. But it's really because once again his gloves are the medium. But like Engine said, it takes a toll on the body, I guess, surging that much energy. There's still a lot we don't know, and he's planning on explaining it all. It's like, yeah, but on a condition that you become a cleaner. So I guess maybe they excavate like places like those trash heaps specifically. I mean, once again, we haven't seen what society is like here on the ground in totality. I mean, that gas station looked pretty decently intact and stuff, so it's going to be a cut-off world that kind of kept on going. Even it's almost like an apocalypse world without being like a full-blown, I guess you can almost look at it as like a trash apocalypse, but I'm sure like a lot of the world maintains itself. But I'm curious to see like what modern society is like down here. I'm sure it's very like survival of the fittest. Everyone kind of looks out for themselves, and probably money, power, and position, just like a top side, means a lot too. You know, there probably is a social ranking of sorts. Maybe not exactly like the division up on the spear, but still. But like I said, I'm assuming cleaners are going to be people who have to clear out certain places just for excavating, and people gathering useful materials. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's almost like monster hunters in a way. But Rudo's like, yeah, I kind of don't want to do anything about that. And then the episode ends. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. Like I said, learning more about this world and its circumstances and its power as givers, like what that's all about. It's going to be really, really interesting to see and learn more about. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.